Inverse trig equations, algebra 2 trigonometry regions. So inverse trig functions have two notations. The notation we're familiar with is this -1 notation is for inverse functions. We did that when we did functions, and we've seen it with trig a little bit, where we had to find an angle in a triangle. Like if you knew sine of angle A was 2 over 5, you could do second sine in your calculator, 2 over 5, and get angle A. And we see that we have that stuff up here. Here's sine -1 and cosine with the -1 and tangent with that -1. So that -1 does stand for inverse function. But there is another notation, and it's this arc notation. So arc sine is the same thing as inverse sine. And you're going to see both. Some problems will have this -1 notation. You need to know it means inverse. Some problems will have this arc, which you also need to know means inverse. Why are there two different? I don't know. I think, and this is really just my guess, I haven't looked up the history on it, but I think basically is some people don't like this -1 notation because it's mistaken for an exponent. Remember, this is not an exponent. It is a symbol for inverse, but it looks like an exponent. So I think arc is a better notation because there's no way of mistaking the word arc for an exponent. So that's probably why, but some problem authors like to use this, some like to use this, so we definitely show you both because you'll see both. So that's it right there. Is first of all, when you see arc cos, it just means inverse cosine, and arc tangent. So remember, arc or inverse finds angles. So inverse functions find angles. When we type second sine or second cosine in our calculator, we're getting an angle out of it. We have the ratio. We want the angle. Like, that, sorry, new page is opening up. Like, that sine 30 equals 1/2. Sorry. Got a blank notebook page opening up. Let me just get rid of that. So that sine 30 equals 1/2. At least hopefully you do. And you type into your calculator sine 30, it's going to tell you 1/2 if your calculator's on degrees. So sine 30 equals 1/2. There's no second key or inverse or anything like that. But say we knew sine of theta, sine of what angle equals 1/2. Well, we know the answer is 30, but our calculator can tell us by doing inverse sine. So if you change it to inverse sine of 1/2, that will get us the angle theta, which is 30 degrees. So you can type in, if you have the ratio, see, like 30 degrees is the angle, 1/2 is the ratio, sine's the function. So if you have the ratio and want the angle, see, on this first example of typing in sine 30, I had the angle, wanted the ratio. If I have the ratio, I have to do second sine, type in the ratio, that'll get me the angle. And then again, just pointing out that this is the same thing as arc sine, 1/2 equals 30. Now, there's no arc on our calculator, so if you see the arc, you just need to know it's the same thing as doing second sine and so on, all right? And a good way to think about this is when you see arc sine, it's saying sine of what angle equals x. Like sine of what angle gives me that ratio. Because a lot of these you should kind of know just from working with our exact values and things like that. Like this first problem down here, the expression arc cosine 1/2 is equal to what? It's saying cosine of what angle? Let me write it that way. Cosine of what angle equals 1/2? So is cosine 30 1/2? Is cosine 45 1/2? Is cosine 60 1/2? Is cosine 90 1/2? Of course you can guess and check these. You can simply type into your calculator second cosine 1/2, or you could just know that the answer is 60 degrees because you hopefully maybe know that. Sine is half at 30, cos is the half at 60. But you can simply type in your calculator second cos, or you can do cos of each of these to see which one gets you that 1/2. Cos 30 is rad 3 over 2, cos 45 is rad 2 over 2, cos 60 is a half, and cos 90, well, that's the x value at 90 degrees, so that would be 0. But let's try a couple more examples. So find the value of arc sine 1/2 plus arc cos rad 2 over 2. Now we know we can't really type this all in at once. Well, maybe you can. This one you probably could, but I I think it's better to do it piece by piece. What is arc sine 1/2? When is sine a half? The answer is 30. Okay, if you don't know that, you just do second sine in your calculator. So second sine 1/2 in your calculator will tell you 30. Um, and how about arc cos rad 2 over 2? When is cosine rad 2 over 2? So second cos radical 2 over 2. But I'm hoping that by now you know that the answer there is 45. If you're going to type it in, just make sure, I'm really messing this up, make sure you get out of the radical before you divide by 2. But we're going to get 45 here. And so 30 plus 45 is 75, and that's what we're looking for. So when you see this arc or that -1 symbol, think of it as the second key in your calculator. It's the second sine 1/2. And second cos rad 2 over 2. What is the principal value of, again, this time we're not using the arc symbol, we're using that, but it's like our second cos negative rad 3 over 2. We'll just type it in. This one, you do not need to, again, use a calculator, but this one would be a little bit harder because it's negative. I'll explain it in a minute. Let me get the answer. It should be 150, I think. It is 150. And the reason why it's 150 again is, when is cosine rad 3 over 2? That's at the, at the 30 mark, 30 degree mark, but cosine is negative here. Cosine's negative in the second and third quadrants, so you're looking at either 150 or 30 short of 180 or 30 past 180, 210. Cosine of both of these values will get you the negative 0.866 and negative rad 3 over 2, and you could check these. Don't worry about this principal value thing. That's just kind of I guess the smaller of the two, but you're not going to really have to worry about that. You're not going to see many of those problems, but basically type it in. All right, one more, and this will be about an 8-minute video. This is where they get a little tricky. Y equals sine of arc cos 1/2. When you have a complex one like this, where they want the function of an inverse function, you have to work your way inside out. You could try typing it all in, but again, that might work in some cases, but it won't in others. So figure out what is this. Work from there. And so just work on the inside. So I want to know what sine is of arc cos 1/2. Well, what is arc cos 1/2? Well, it's second cos 1/2. When is cosine a half? 60. So arc cos 1/2 is 60. I want sine of that, and sine of 60 is rad 3 over 2. So it's just basically, like I said, working inside out. You could try typing it all in at once, but it's not going to work every time. So arc cos 1/2 is 60, and again, I'm doing second cosine in my calculator to do arc. 1/2 is 0.5. And then I'm doing sine of that, which is 0.866, which I know is rad 3 over 2, or maybe you just have it memorized, as I would love if you did. All right, so we'll play with this some more tomorrow.